He left me for a perfect woman and raved about their genes. But when I saw their daughter, I burst out laughing. He screamed, "Why does she look like this?" I whispered, "She looks exactly like you." Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. The smell of searing Wagyu beef usually makes my mouth water, a rich and savory promise of a celebration. But that night, as the grandfather clock in the hallway ticked past 9:30, the aroma filling my dining room just made me feel nauseous. It was the scent of wasted effort. It was the scent of something going cold. I sat at the head of the table, staring at the two empty porcelain plates. The expensive bottle of Cabernet I had splurged on, $60, which was a lot for us, had been breathing for so long it was probably going flat. The candles I had lit 3 hours ago were now just puddles of wax, sputtering their last breaths against the glass holders. It was our 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years. Half a decade of building a life, or so I thought. It was also my husband Jason's 37th birthday. I had taken a half day off from my accounting job, risking the wrath of my supervisor during tax season, just to spend 3 hours prepping his favorite meal. I had even bought a new dress, a sleek emerald green number that hugged curves I wasn't always confident about, but Jason claimed to love. I wanted everything to be perfect. But the front door remained locked. The driveway remained empty. The silence in the house was so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. My phone sat on the table next to my fork, silent and dark. I had called him 10 times. I had texted him 5 more. Where are you? Is everything okay? Dinner is ready. Nothing. Just the endless, mocking silence of the voicemail beep. You have to understand, Jason was a real estate agent. He was a man who lived and died by his phone. It was surgically attached to his hand. He slept with it on the nightstand. He took it into the shower. He never, ever let a call go to voicemail unless he was closing $1 million deal, and even then, he'd shoot me a quick text. Panic started to claw at my throat. My mind didn't go to another woman immediately, I was too naive for that. It went to a car crash. I imagined his sleek, leased BMW wrapped around a telephone pole on the rainy highway. I imagined him lying in a hospital bed, unable to reach me. I stood up, my legs feeling shaky, and started pacing the living room. I was wringing my hands so hard my knuckles turned white. I decided to call his office again, even though I knew the receptionist had gone home hours ago. Maybe the security guard, Earl, was there. Earl liked me. He sometimes let me in when I brought Jason lunch. I dialed the main line. It rang and rang. Finally, a gruff voice answered. Security. Earl? It's Sarah. Jason's wife. My voice was trembling. I can't find Jason. Is his car still in the lot? Did he stay late for paperwork? There was a long pause on the other end. Mrs. Miller? No. Jason isn't here. Are you sure? Maybe he's in a meeting room? Ma'am, Earl's voice dropped, sounding uncomfortable. Jason cleared out his desk yesterday afternoon. He turned in his badge. I watched him carry 3 boxes to his car. My blood ran cold. What? He resigned? He didn't tell you? Earl sounded pitying now. I hated that sound. Yeah. He quit. Said he was moving on to bigger things. I thought you knew. I hung up the phone, the room spinning. He quit his job? Yesterday? And he didn't say a word to me? We talked about everything. Or at least, I thought we did. Just this morning, he had kissed me goodbye and complained about a difficult client he had to meet at noon. He lied to my face before he even had his coffee. Why would he lie? I was standing there, frozen in the middle of the living room, when my phone finally chimed. I dove for it, nearly knocking over a wine glass in my desperation. It wasn't a call. It wasn't a text from Jason saying he was sorry. It was a notification from our bank. Alert, large withdrawal detected. My heart stopped. Literally missed a beat. I unlocked the banking app, my fingers trembling so hard I mistyped the passcode twice. When the screen finally loaded, I gasped, the air rushing out of my lungs as if I'd been punched in the gut. The joint savings account, the fund we had been building for 5 years for a down payment on a house, the money I had scrimped and saved from my salary, the bonuses I threw in there instead of buying new clothes, was empty. Zero. $75,000. Gone. Transferred out 3 minutes ago to an external account I didn't recognize. Then, the email came. It popped up at the top of my screen, the sender simply Jason. No subject line. Just his name, staring at me like a stranger. I opened it, my vision blurring with tears I couldn't hold back anymore. Sarah, don't wait up. I have urgent business to attend to. I won't be coming home tonight. I'll be staying at the office, well, you know. We need to talk tomorrow. Don't call me. Urgent business? At 10 at night? After draining our life savings? After quitting his job? The panic morphed instantly into a cold, hard dread. I didn't wait for tomorrow. I grabbed my keys and ran out to my car. I drove to his office, even though Earl said he wasn't there. I drove to his favorite bar. I drove past the gym he went to. Nothing. I drove home in a daze, the streetlights blurring into streaks of angry orange against the rain-slicked windshield. When I walked back into our rental house, the silence felt different. It wasn't the silence of waiting anymore, it was the silence of a crime scene. I walked into our bedroom and threw open the closet doors. It was empty. His designer suits, his Italian leather shoes, his collection of silk ties, his expensive watches, all gone. The shelves were bare. On the floor, where his shoe rack used to be, lay a single object. It was a small, silver hand mirror. It was cracked down the middle, a jagged line splitting the glass. Jason loved this mirror. He kept it in his pocket sometimes. He used it to check his profile, to make sure every hair was in place, to admire his own jawline. He wouldn't have left it unless he was in a rush, or unless he didn't need to look back anymore. I sank onto the floor, clutching the broken glass, seeing my own fractured, tear-stained reflection staring back at me. I realized then that the man I had slept next to for 5 years, the man I cooked for, the man I loved, was a stranger. He hadn't just left me. He had robbed me. He had erased himself from our life in a single afternoon. And I had no idea where he was. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through a catalog of every conversation we'd had in the last month. Was he distant? Maybe. Was he more obsessed with his appearance than usual? Definitely. But Jason was always vain. That was just Jason. I never thought it meant he was plotting to destroy me. By 7 a.m., I had a plan. Or at least, a desperate attempt at one. I logged into our shared phone provider account, something he apparently forgot to change the password for. I checked the location history of his phone. He had turned the GPS off an hour ago, but the last ping was at 2 a.m. It was at the Sterling Tower. The most expensive, luxurious residential high-rise in the city. A place where the rent for a studio apartment probably cost more than my entire monthly salary. I showered, put on my work clothes, though I knew I wouldn't make it to the office today, and drove downtown. My eyes were puffy, my skin was pale, and I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I walked into the lobby of the Sterling Tower. It smelled like expensive lilies and money. The floors were polished marble, and the concierge looked like a model. I demanded to see Jason Miller. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the concierge said, looking down her nose at me. "We don't give out resident information." "He's my husband," I snapped, my voice cracking. "And he stole $75,000 from me. You can either call him down, or I can call the police and have them come up. Which do you think your wealthy residents would prefer?" It was a bluff. I knew the police would call this a civil matter, but it worked. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Jason stepped out. He looked impeccable. While I looked like a wreck, he looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine photo shoot. His skin was glowing, his hair was perfectly coiffed with not a strand out of place, and he was wearing a navy bespoke suit I had never seen before, one that definitely cost a few $1,000s. He didn't look like a man in crisis. He didn't look guilty. He looked like a man on vacation. He walked over to me, stopping just out of arm's reach, and sighed. A long, dramatic sigh of inconvenience. "You look tired, Sarah," he said. Those were the first words out of his mouth. Not "I'm sorry," not "let me explain." Just an insult. It really highlights the crow's feet around your eyes. You should really start using that retinol cream I told you about. I stood there, stunned. The audacity was breathtaking. "Where is the money, Jason?" I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. People in the lobby turned to look. I didn't care. "You emptied the account. That was our future. That was for the house." He scoffed, adjusting his silk cufflink. "Our future? No, Sarah. That was my severance package." "Severance package?" I stepped closer, smelling his cologne, Santal 33, expensive, overpowering. It made me want to vomit. "You stole from me. I worked double shifts during tax season for that money. I drove a 10-year-old car so we could save that money. And look what it did to you," he sneered, looking me up and down with an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. "You let yourself go, Sarah. Look at you. You're 37, but you look 45. Your nose is too wide. Your chin is weak. And the wrinkles. God, the wrinkles." I recoiled as if he had slapped me. Jason had always been critical of appearances, usually other people's, but he had never turned that cruelty on me. "I loved you for who you were, Jason," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes again. "I didn't care about looks. I supported you when you were just starting out." "That's the problem," he snapped, his voice rising, echoing off the marble walls. "You settle for mediocrity. You're comfortable being average. I am destined for greatness, Sarah. I am a handsome, successful man, and I deserve a woman who reflects that status. A woman who is perfect. You're just plain. You're background noise." He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a hiss. "I can't risk having average children, Sarah. I need a legacy. I need genetic perfection. And looking at you, looking at your family, you can't give me that." He pulled a folded paper from his inside jacket pocket and shoved it into my hand. It felt heavy, like a brick. "That's the divorce settlement. My lawyer drew it up this morning. Sign it, and I won't fight you on the furniture. You can keep the old couch. I have no use for garbage." I stared at the paper, then back at him. My brain was trying to process the sheer narcissism standing in front of me. "Who is she?" I asked, my intuition screaming. "You didn't rent a place in this building alone. You don't have the credit score for this. You used my money to buy these clothes, didn't you?" He smiled then. It was a cold, predatory grin that didn't reach his eyes. Someone who appreciates beauty. Someone who can actually help me advance in this world, instead of dragging me down to the clearance rack at Walmart. Goodbye, Sarah. Don't come back here. Security has been instructed not to let you in. If you make a scene, she has lawyers who will eat you alive. He turned on his heel and walked toward the elevators, checking his reflection in the polished brass doors as they closed. He didn't look back once. I stood there, holding the divorce papers, feeling small, ugly, and utterly discarded. But beneath the pain, beneath the shock, a tiny spark of anger began to ignite in my gut. He thought I was garbage? He thought he was perfect? I looked at the elevator numbers climbing higher and higher, taking him up to his ivory tower. He had no idea that gravity works the same way for everyone. What goes up eventually has to come crashing down. And I swore to myself, right then and there, that I would be there to watch the impact. The drive back to the rental house was a blur. I don't remember the traffic lights. I don't remember the route. I just remember the burning sensation in my chest, a mix of heartburn and heartbreak. When I got home, the silence was waiting for me. But now, the house felt hostile. It was filled with objects that reminded me of a lie. The coffee mug he used yesterday morning. The throw blanket we bought together. It all felt contaminated. I called my boss and told him I was sick. I wasn't lying. I felt physically ill. Then, I sat on the floor of the living room, surrounded by the remnants of my life, and I let my mind drift back. I needed to understand. How did I miss this? How did I sleep next to a monster for 5 years? The red flags were there. They were everywhere. They were just painted over with charm and handsome smiles. I remembered our wedding day. It was a small ceremony, barely 20 people. I had wanted a big party, but Jason insisted on keeping it intimate. I don't have family, Sarah, he had said, looking at me with those sad, puppy dog eyes. My parents died when I was 20. No siblings. No aunts or uncles. It's too painful to have a big wedding when my side of the aisle would be empty. Let's just make it about us. I had melted. I had hugged him and promised to be his family. I thought he was brave. Now, I realized he was hiding. I remembered the photos. Jason refused to take candid photos. Ever. If I pulled up my phone to snap a picture of us at dinner, he would physically grab my wrist. Not from that angle, he would snap. Then he would spend 5 minutes adjusting the lighting, tilting his head to the exact same degree, always the left side, and putting on a practiced, frozen smile. And then there was the nose incident. It was about 2 years into our marriage. We were watching a movie on the couch, laughing. I reached over to affectionately boop his nose, a playful, loving gesture. He recoiled so violently he knocked a glass of red wine off the table. It shattered, staining the rug like blood. "Don't touch the structure," he had screamed. His face was pale, his eyes wide with genuine terror. He scrambled off the couch and ran to the bathroom mirror, frantically checking his nose from every angle, touching it gingerly. I spent the rest of the night apologizing, cleaning up the wine, thinking I had hurt him. He spent 2 hours in the bathroom. He never explained what he meant by the structure. I just assumed he was sensitive. I walked into the bathroom now, the master bath that was mostly his domain. I needed to pack his toiletries. He had left behind the cheap stuff, toothpaste, deodorant, but taken the expensive serums. I opened the cabinet under the sink. Way in the back, shoved behind a bottle of bleach and some old sponges, something rattled. I reached in and pulled out a small, orange prescription bottle. It had rolled into the corner and been forgotten. It was covered in dust. I squinted at the label. It wasn't for an illness. It was a high-strength painkiller, oxycodone. The prescribing doctor was listed as Dr. V. Kogan, New Horizons Aesthetic Surgery Center. The date on the bottle was from 6 years ago. A year before we met. My hands trembled as I held the bottle. Jason had told me he never had surgery. He bragged about it. "I'm a natural specimen," he used to say when he looked in the mirror. "Good genes, Sarah. You can't buy this." I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror. The mirror he used to preen in. He lied, I whispered to the empty room. He lied about everything. Why would a man who claimed to have no family and perfect genes have a prescription from a plastic surgery center? And why was he so terrified of anyone touching his face? A cold realization washed over me. Jason didn't just leave me for another woman. He left me because I was the witness to his mask. And now that he had found a new audience, he didn't need me anymore. But he made a mistake. He left a trail. And I was going to follow it. The next day, I called the one person I knew would be on my side. Brenda. Brenda was my oldest friend, but she was also useful. She was a notary, which meant she could help with legal papers, but more importantly, she worked as a high-end esthetician at Lumina, the most exclusive medical spa in the city. If anyone knew the dirty secrets of the city's beautiful people, it was Brenda. We met at a diner halfway between my office and her spa. I looked terrible, dark circles, messy bun. Brenda looked fierce, her red nails tapping on the Formica table. "You look like hell, honey," she said, sliding a menu toward me. "Eat. You need strength if we're going to war." "I don't want war, Brenda," I said, my voice hoarse. "I just want my money back. And I want to know who she is." He wouldn't tell me. He just said she appreciates beauty and perfection. Brenda snorted so loud the waitress turned around. "Oh, I know who she is. The whole city knows who she is." Jason isn't exactly subtle. He posted a photo on Instagram this morning from a balcony. He didn't tag her, but I recognized the view. That's the penthouse at the Sterling Tower. I froze. Sterling? Like Tiffany Sterling? "The one and only," Brenda said, her eyes darkening. "Daughter of Marcus Sterling, the real estate tycoon. Billionaire. Not millionaire. Billionaire." My stomach dropped. He left me for a billionaire heiress? "He left you for a wallet," Brenda corrected. "But listen to me, Sarah. Tiffany Sterling isn't just rich. She's a piece of work. She comes into my spa once a month for chemical peels and laser resurfacing. She treats the staff like furniture. She made our receptionist cry last week because the water in the waiting room wasn't room temperature." "Jason said he wants genetic perfection," I muttered, stirring my coffee. "He said I was average. He thinks she's perfect." Brenda burst out laughing. It was a loud, cackling sound that made me jump. "Genetic perfection," she wheezed, wiping a tear from her eye. "Oh, Sarah. That's rich. That is rich. What's so funny?" "Honey," Brenda leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Tiffany Sterling has had more work done than a freeway in construction season. She didn't buy that face with good genes, she bought it with her daddy's Amex Black Card." "What do you mean?" "I mean, before she went to Europe for her gap year when she was 22, she looked completely different. Rumor is she spent $500,000 on reconstruction. Nose, chin, cheeks, eyes, boobs, everything. If Jason thinks he's getting superior DNA, he's in for the shock of his life." I sat back, processing this. Jason, the man obsessed with natural beauty and legacy, had left me for a woman who was entirely artificial. It was ironic. It was almost funny. "Does he know?" I asked. "Doubt it," Brenda shrugged. "Tiffany buried her past deep. She scrubs the internet, she threatens lawsuits if anyone posts old photos. She wants the world to believe she was born a goddess. And Jason? He's so blinded by the money and the fake lashes, he probably doesn't look too close. He stole my life savings to buy suits to impress her, I said, the anger returning, hotter this time. He wants to build a dynasty with her. Let him try, Brenda said, stabbing a fork into her pancake. Plastic doesn't pass down, Sarah. You can fix a nose, but you can't fix chromosomes. If they have kids, well, let's just say the truth is going to come out in the delivery room. That thought planted a seed in my mind. A tiny, dark seed of hope. Jason wanted a legacy? He wanted perfect children? He was betting his entire life on a lie. But before I could enjoy that thought, my phone rang. It wasn't Jason. It was a blocked number. Answer it, Brenda said. I picked it up. Hello? Is this Sarah Miller? The voice on the other end was icy, sharp, and sounded bored. Yes. Who is this? This is Tiffany Sterling. My blood ran cold. I looked at Brenda, my eyes wide. I'm calling to give you a heads up, Tiffany said, her voice dripping with condensation. Jason tells me you're making noise about some shared bank account. It's pathetic, really. It's pocket change. But it's annoying him, and when he's annoyed, he's less fun for me. It's not pocket change to me, I managed to say. It's my money. Not anymore, she said. Here is the deal. You are currently renting a house on Oak Street. My father's company just acquired that management firm this morning. Surprise. I felt the room spin. What? We own your lease now, she said cheerfully. And I noticed a clause about renovation. We can terminate the lease with 30 days' notice. Actually, make that 7 days. I think that house is an eyesore. I want it gutted. You can't do that, I gasped. I have nowhere to go. You have 7 days, she repeated. And Sarah? If you don't sign the divorce papers today, uncontested, giving Jason everything he wants, I might have to call your boss at the accounting firm. I play tennis with the senior partner. I'd hate to tell him that his employee is emotionally unstable and harassing my fiancé. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. She wasn't just stealing my husband. She was taking my home. She was threatening my job. She was trying to erase me from the earth. The next week was a blur of hell. I didn't have a choice. I signed the divorce papers. I let Jason keep the money. I had to save my job. I had to survive. I spent every waking hour packing. The house that I had loved, the garden I had planted, it was all being stripped away. Tiffany Sterling wasn't bluffing. An eviction notice had been taped to my door the morning after her call. I found a small, dingy apartment across town. It was half the size and twice the commute, but it was mine. It was 2 a.m. on my last night in the house. I was exhausted, covered in dust, my hands dry and cracked from handling cardboard. I had one last place to clear out, the storage crawl space under the stairs. Jason hated that space. He was claustrophobic, or so he said. He never went in there. It smells like mold and poverty, he used to joke. I dragged myself onto my knees and crawled in. It was packed with old holiday decorations, broken electronics, and things we hadn't touched in years. I was shoving a box of Christmas lights toward the door when my foot kicked something hard in the back corner. It sounded heavy. Solid. I shone my flashlight into the darkness. It was a plastic storage bin, gray and dusty. But unlike the other boxes, this one was taped shut. Layer upon layer of silver duct tape wrapped around it, as if someone wanted to make sure it was never, ever opened. Curiosity piqued. I grabbed a utility knife from my back pocket and sliced through the tape. It took effort. The adhesive was old and gummy. I pulled the lid off. Inside, it wasn't gold or cash. It was papers. Old tax returns from 10 years ago. Bank statements from a bank in Ohio. And at the bottom, a book. A thick, leather-bound hardcover book. I pulled it out and wiped the dust off the cover. North Central High School, class of 2002. I frowned. This didn't make sense. Jason told me he grew up in Connecticut. He told me he went to a private prep school called St. Jude's. He had a diploma hanging in his office. North Central was a public school in Ohio. I opened the book. The spine cracked loud in the quiet house. I started flipping through the pages, looking for the name Jason Stone. That was his name when I met him. He told me Stone was his birth name. I scanned the S section. Nothing. No Jason Stone. Then I looked at the old tax return in the box again. The name on the top wasn't Jason Stone. It was Jason Miller. I felt a shiver go down my spine. He had changed his name? Why? I flipped the yearbook back to the M section. My finger trailed down the rows of awkward teenage faces. Martin. Matthews. Myers. And there it was. Jason Miller. I stared at the photo. I blinked, rubbed my eyes with my dirty hands, and stared again. The name was right. The birthday listed in the index was right. But the face. The boy in the photo was unrecognizable. He was heavy-set, with a soft, round face that had zero definition. He had a severe underbite that made his chin disappear into his neck. His nose was bulbous, hooked, and took up a significant portion of his face. His eyes were small, hooded, and hidden behind thick, Coke bottle glasses. His hair was thin and frizzy. I looked at the photo, and then I pictured the man who had screamed at me in the lobby. The man with the chiseled jaw. The Roman nose. The thick, lustrous hair. The hunter eyes. Not one single millimeter of his face was original. Genetic perfection, I whispered to the empty, dusty crawl space. A bubble of hysterical laughter rose in my throat. He hadn't just had a nose job. He had undergone a full-body reconstruction. He had erased Jason Miller completely. He had invented a new name, a new history, a new face. He had spent a fortune, probably every dime he ever made before he met me, sculpting himself into a false idol. And he kept this box hidden because it was the proof. It was the before picture he never wanted the world to see. The irony was suffocating. He left me because he was terrified of having average children. He left me because I wasn't perfect enough. But he was so deluded by his own reflection that he forgot what he actually looked like. He forgot his own DNA. I sat there on the cold concrete, clutching the yearbook to my chest. For the first time since he left, I didn't feel like crying. I felt powerful. Because I knew something Jason didn't. You can change your nose. You can shave your jaw. You can lie to the world and to your wife. You can even lie to yourself. But DNA? DNA is a snitch. DNA never forgets. The next morning, I didn't go to the new apartment immediately. I drove straight to Brenda's condo. I banged on her door at 7 a.m. She opened it, bleary-eyed, holding a cat. Sarah? What is it? Did Tiffany call again? Better, I said, marching into her kitchen. I found something. I slammed the yearbook onto her kitchen island. Page 84. Look for Jason Miller. Brenda frowned, put on her reading glasses, and flipped the pages. She found the spot. She looked at the photo. She looked at me. She looked back at the photo. Shut up. Her voice was a whisper. Is this him? That's him, I said, pouring myself a glass of water from her tap. That's Mr. Genetic Perfection. That's the man who said my nose was too wide. Brenda started laughing. It started as a giggle and turned into a full-blown cackle. She had to lean against the counter to support herself. "Oh my God," she wheezed. "He's a fraud. He's a total fraud. Does Tiffany know?" "I don't think so," I said. "He keeps this box hidden like it's a dead body. He told me he went to prep school in Connecticut." Brenda wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. "This is gold, Sarah. You can ruin him. You can post this online. Tiffany would dump him in a heartbeat. She hates ugly people." "Wait," Brenda said, her face suddenly serious. "Hold on. Seeing this, it reminds me of something." She pulled out her phone and started tapping furiously. "I have a friend from college who went to high school with Tiffany. A different high school, obviously. But give me a second." She scrolled through her messages, mumbling to herself. "Found it. My friend sent me this a year ago when I told her Tiffany was a client of ours. I forgot about it until now." She turned the phone screen toward me. It was a digital scan of an old yearbook photo. The name under the photo was Tiffany Goggins. I leaned in. If I thought Jason's transformation was extreme, Tiffany's was a miracle of modern engineering. The girl in the photo had severe acne scarring that pitted her cheeks. She had a very prominent, protruding jaw, an overbite so severe her lips couldn't close properly. Her eyes were set slightly too far apart. Her hair was stringy and limp. She looked nothing, absolutely nothing, like the glossy, filtered, perfect woman Jason was currently parading around town. "She changed her name too," Brenda said. "Her dad made his billions later in life. She bought a new face the second the check cleared. She changed Goggins to Sterling." We stood there in the kitchen, staring at the two photos. The yearbook on the counter, and the phone in Brenda's hand. It was almost poetic. Two people who hated their true selves so much they erased them. Two people obsessed with superficial beauty, status, and legacy. Two people who were about to marry each other, convinced they were creating a dynasty of supermodels. They were frauding each other. Jason thought he was marrying a natural beauty. Tiffany thought she was marrying a genetic god. "You have to tell him," Brenda said, her eyes wide. "Sarah, you have to warn him. Or warn her. This is a disaster waiting to happen. If they have kids." I looked at the photo of Jason, the boy who looked like he was afraid of the world. Then I thought about the man who stole my savings. The man who called me garbage. The woman who evicted me. I felt a cold, calm darkness settle over my heart. "No," I said, closing the yearbook with a heavy thud. "I'm not going to say a word." Brenda looked at me, surprised. "Why not? You could destroy their wedding." "Because," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "If I tell them now, they'll just break up. Jason will find another victim. Tiffany will find another Ken doll. They'll escape. But if I let them marry," I continued, "if I let them sign those papers, they're trapped. And when nature takes its course, when they have that baby they are so desperate for, it's going to be a punishment far worse than anything I could invent." "You're going to let them breed?" Brenda asked, horrified and impressed at the same time. "I'm going to let them face the truth," I said. "Biology is the only judge that matters now." I spent the next month settling into my tiny apartment. I got a second job doing freelance bookkeeping to make up for the lost savings. I was tired, I was lonely, and I was broke. But I had a secret that kept me warm at night. I followed their life on social media like it was my favorite TV show. Jason posted constantly. Photos of their engagement party on a yacht. photos of Tiffany's 10-carat diamond ring. Then, the news broke about the wedding arrangements. Since Tiffany was a public figure, the gossip columns were all over it. One article caught my eye. It was from a Business Insider blog. The Sterling-Miller merger, ironclad contracts for the billionaire bride. I read it greedily. Sources close to the Sterling family reveal that Marcus Sterling, the bride's father, has insisted on one of the strictest prenuptial agreements in New York history. In the event of infidelity or divorce initiated by the groom, Jason Miller will walk away with absolutely nothing: no alimony, no property, no assets. I smirked. Jason had signed his own death warrant. He was trapped. He couldn't leave her, or he'd be destitute. But the article continued. However, the contract reportedly includes a massive legacy bonus. For every biological child born to the couple, the groom receives a payout of $2 million and a permanent stake in the family trust, ensuring the Sterling bloodline continues with suitable partners. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. A legacy bonus. They were literally putting a price tag on the baby's DNA. Jason wasn't just marrying Tiffany for love or even just money, he was breeding for a payday. He was betting everything, his past, his future, his financial survival, on the idea that his perfect genes and her perfect genes would produce a $2 million baby. I imagined Jason reading that contract, seeing the dollar signs, looking in the mirror at his surgically altered face and thinking, it's fine. It's been long enough. My genes probably adapted. People think that way. People like Jason believe their own lies so deeply they think they can trick biology. I could have sent the yearbook to Tiffany's father. I could have sent the tax returns to the press. I could have stopped it all. But I didn't. I sat on my second-hand sofa, ate my instant noodles, and waited. I was playing the long game. The wedding took place 6 weeks after our divorce was finalized. It was fast. Suspiciously fast. Rumor was Tiffany wanted to get pregnant immediately. She was 37, after all. I wasn't invited, obviously. But I watched the highlights on Instagram. It was disgusting. And beautiful. The venue was a castle in Europe. Tiffany wore a custom Dior gown. Jason wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. They stood at the altar, surrounded by thousands of white roses. I zoomed in on the video Jason posted. He was crying. Not tears of joy, I suspected, but tears of relief. He had made it. He had secured the bag. He was officially the husband of a billionaire heiress. He looked at Tiffany with what looked like adoration. But I knew what he was really looking at. He was looking at his reflection in her eyes. He posted a caption under the photo of them kissing. To my queen. Finally, a partner who matches my drive, my standard, and my excellence. We are building a dynasty of beauty and power. Hashtag genetic perfection, hashtag soulmate. I scrolled through the comments. Couple goals. You two are going to make the most beautiful babies. Perfection. Barbie and Ken IRL. It was nauseating. It was a carnival of narcissism. But then, I saw a comment from Tiffany. Can't wait to start our family, my king. Our little angel is going to be flawless, just like us. I put my phone down and poured myself a glass of wine. Cheers, Jason, I said to the empty room. Enjoy the honeymoon. Enjoy the money. Enjoy the illusion. I walked over to the closet where I had hidden the yearbook. I hadn't looked at it in weeks. I pulled it out and opened it to page 84 one last time. I looked at Jason Miller's true face. The face he hated. The face he erased. You're going to come back, I whispered to the photo. You're going to come back in the form of a little girl or a little boy, and you're going to tear his life apart. I didn't know then that it would take 3 years. I didn't know the specifics of the tragedy that was coming. But I knew one thing for sure, the truth always surfaces. Sometimes it comes out in a confession. Sometimes it comes out in a court document. And sometimes, it comes out in the nose of a newborn baby. I closed the book, shoved it back onto the shelf, and went to sleep with a smile on my face. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for the snap. They say the best revenge is living well, but let's be honest, in the immediate aftermath of a nuclear divorce, simply surviving feels like an act of defiance. For the first year, I didn't feel like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I felt like I was choking on them. My new apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a neighborhood that Jason would have called up-and-coming, which is real estate code for unsafe after dark. The radiators clanked like dying engines, and the view from my single window was a brick wall. But it was mine. Every cracked tile, every peeling strip of wallpaper, it was mine. I couldn't just sit there and wait for karma. Karma takes too long, and I had bills to pay. Tiffany Sterling hadn't just taken my husband, she had damaged my professional reputation. I lost 2 major clients in the first month because word got out that I was unstable and difficult, lies planted by her father's legal team. They wanted to starve me out. They wanted me to crawl away and disappear into poverty so I would never be a blemish on their perfect, gilded life. But they forgot one thing, I'm an accountant. I know how to find value where others see zero. I started freelancing under a maiden name I hadn't used in 15 years. I took on the clients that big firms ignored, the struggling bakery owners, the freelance graphic designers, the single moms trying to launch Etsy shops. I worked 18-hour days. My dining table was covered in receipts and tax forms. It was during this grind that I met Mike. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a model. He was a landscape contractor who came into my makeshift office with a shoebox full of crumpled receipts and a look of pure panic. My previous accountant said I'm a hopeless case, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. His hands were rough, stained with soil and calloused. He had a scar above his eyebrow and a nose that had clearly been broken at least once. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He didn't look like a Ken doll. He looked like a human being who worked for a living. There's no such thing as a hopeless case, I said, opening the box. Just disorganized ones. We spent 4 hours sorting through his mess. We ordered greasy pizza. We laughed about the absurdity of tax law. And when he looked at me, wearing my old college sweatshirt, no makeup, hair in a messy bun, he didn't critique my crow's feet. He didn't suggest eye cream. You have an amazing brain, he said. And a really nice laugh. It was such a simple compliment, but after 5 years of Jason picking apart my appearance, it felt like rain in a drought. While I was rebuilding my foundation brick by brick, Jason and Tiffany were building their castle in the sky. But even from a distance, I could see the cracks. I still tracked them. Call it masochism, call it research, but I needed to know. I saw the photos of Jason at galas, his smile a little too tight, his eyes a little too manic. I saw the blind items in the gossip columns about a newlywed billionaire husband who was spending tens of thousands of dollars at casinos, desperate to feel like a big shot with his own money, only to have his wife's credit card declined. The prenup was a leash, and Tiffany was holding it tight. He was a trophy husband, a poodle in a designer vest. He had traded his freedom for a penthouse view, and I suspected the view was starting to look like prison bars. When the pregnancy announcement finally dropped, it hit the internet with the force of a bomb. It was a video production that probably cost more than my entire yearly earnings. Slow-motion shots of Jason kissing Tiffany's stomach. Drone footage of their Hamptons estate. A voiceover that sounded like a movie trailer, A New Dynasty Begins. They were treating this unborn child not as a human being, but as a product launch. The legacy, Jason called it in every caption. The perfection. He sent me that email around this time, the one gloating about the perfectly healthy daughter. I didn't reply, but I read between the lines. He wasn't trying to convince me, he was trying to convince himself. He needed this baby to be the anchor that secured his place in the Sterling Empire. Remember the contract, $2 million per child. That baby wasn't just his daughter, she was his paycheck. She was his retirement fund. She was the only thing that gave him any power in that marriage. The months rolled by. The gender reveal party involved a helicopter spraying pink smoke over the Hudson River. The baby shower was featured in Vogue. And then, the silence. The birth happened in November. I knew the date because Brenda, my spy on the inside of the city's elite circles, told me. Sarah, Brenda whispered over the phone, her voice buzzing with excitement. Something is weird. My cousin works in billing at Mount Sinai. The Sterling wing was on lockdown. That's normal for celebrities, isn't it? I asked, looking up from a tax return. No, this was different, Brenda said. Usually, they hire a photographer for the delivery room. They want the first breath shot. But Jason kicked everyone out. He fired the photographer on the spot. And here's the kicker, the nurses had to sign a secondary NDA. A specific one. My cousin said she saw Jason in the hallway afterward. He didn't look happy. He looked terrified. Terrified? Like he had seen a ghost, Brenda confirmed. That was the first red flag. Then came the social media blackout. For two people who documented every latte they drank, the absence of their child was deafening. 1 week passed. 2 weeks. A month. Tiffany posted about her recovery. She posted about her diet. She posted about the expensive gifts. But of the baby? Nothing. Not a toe. Not a hand. The public started to ask questions. The comment section on Jason's Instagram turned into a battlefield. Where is the baby? Is she sick? Why are you hiding her? Jason's replies were aggressive, almost unhinged. We are protecting her privacy. She is too beautiful for the public eye. We don't want the evil eye on her perfection. The evil eye. That was a telling phrase. He wasn't afraid of the public seeing her beauty. He was afraid of the public seeing the truth. I sat in my office, looking at the copy of the yearbook photo I kept in my desk drawer. Jason Miller, age 17. The nose. The chin. The eyes. I imagined a newborn baby with those features. On an adult, surgery could hide them. On a baby? They would be raw. Undeniable. You can't hide her forever, Jason, I whispered. She has to go to the park eventually. She has to go to school. The clock was ticking. And every day of silence just confirmed my theory, the legacy had arrived, and it looked exactly like the man who ordered it. 3 years. That is how long they managed to keep Bella hidden from the world. It required a level of paranoia that would make a dictator look casual. They bought out a private floor of the penthouse. They hired nannies who were flown in from Europe and forced to live on site, signing contracts that promised financial ruin if they snapped a single photo. They used private entrances. They draped blankets over carriers even in the sweltering heat. But you cannot fight the laws of probability. Eventually, someone slips up. It happened on a windy Tuesday in March. Jason was taking Bella to a private appointment, probably a geneticist or a specialist, judging by the location on the Upper East Side. His usual security detail was distracted by a minor car accident down the street. Jason rushed Bella out of the building to the waiting SUV. He was holding her hand, pulling her a little too fast. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat, pulled low. A gust of wind tore through the avenue. The hat flew off. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, Bella stood there, exposed to the world. A freelance photographer, a guy named Rick who had been hunting the Sterling baby bounty for years, was waiting across the street with a long-range lens. Click. 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 The photos hit TMZ an hour later. I was at lunch with Mike when my phone started blowing up. Brenda sent me a link with just one word, karma. I clicked it. The headline screamed, "Billionaire heiress's mystery daughter finally revealed." Fans shocked by unrecognizable features. I zoomed in on the photo. It was grainy, but undeniable. The little girl standing on the sidewalk didn't look like a monster. She looked like a child. But she looked nothing like the curated, filtered, surgically enhanced couple dragging her into the car. She had a prominent, hooked nose that dominated her small face, Jason's original nose. She had a receding chin that melted into her neck, Jason's original chin. Her eyes were small, hooded, and set wide apart, Tiffany's original eyes. And her teeth, visible because she was crying, were crowded and pushed forward by a severe overbite, Tiffany's original jaw. She was a mosaic of their pre-surgery selves. A living, breathing before picture. The internet, being the internet, was cruel. The comments were horrific. People called her unfortunate, breathtaking in the wrong way, and proof of infidelity. But amidst the cruelty, there was confusion. How, one comment read with thousands of likes. How do Barbie and Ken make this? It's biologically impossible unless one of them is lying. She looks like neither of them. Adoption? Affair? That nose, that's a strong gene. But where did it come from? I watched the fallout unfold in real time. Jason deleted his Instagram account within an hour. Tiffany turned off comments. A statement was released by the Sterling family lawyers threatening to sue anyone who shared the photo, which, of course, only made people share it more. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Vindication? Yes. But also a deep, aching sadness for that little girl. She was being dragged into a car, hiding her face, taught by her own father that she was something to be ashamed of. Jason wasn't protecting her from the paparazzi. He was protecting himself from exposure. That night, Mike found me staring at the photo on my laptop. "That's her," he asked gently. "That's her," I said. "That's the legacy dot." "She looks like a normal kid," Mike said, shrugging. "A bit awkward features, sure, but she's a kid." "Why are they acting like it's a crime scene?" "Because," I said, closing the laptop. "To them, it is. She is the evidence of the crime they committed against themselves." The photo leak was the beginning of the end, but the real cracks appeared when they tried to enter society. You have to understand the world Jason and Tiffany live in. It's a world of exclusivity. Private clubs, private jets, and most importantly, private schools. In New York City, getting your child into the right preschool is a blood sport. It's not just about money, it's about image. It's about the family brand. Jason was determined to get Bella into St. Jude's, the prestigious prep school he claimed to have attended, another lie. He wanted to prove that despite the unflattering photos, his daughter was elite. I heard about the interview through the grapevine. A client of mine was a donor to the school. Apparently, Jason and Tiffany arrived like royalty. Security detail, designer outfits, the works. Bella was dressed in a custom dress, with a bonnet that hid most of her profile. The interview was a disaster. It wasn't because of Bella. By all accounts, she was a sweet, quiet child who liked to stack blocks. It was Jason. When the headmaster asked standard questions about family history and genetics, standard for their medical forms, Jason became defensive. "Why do you need to know about my grandfather?" he allegedly snapped. "Look at me. Look at my wife. We are the standard. Our daughter is a genius." Then, another child in the playroom, a blunt 4-year-old, asked Bella why her nose was big. Kids do that. They have no filter. But Jason lost it. He didn't comfort his daughter. He didn't laugh it off. He screamed at the 4-year-old. He screamed at the teacher. He screamed that the school was filled with genetic trash and that his daughter was a queen among peasants. They were asked to leave. They were rejected from St. Jude's. Then they were rejected from Dalton. Then Trinity. The official reasons were always polite, no space, not a good fit. But the real reason was whispered at dinner parties across the Upper East Side. The parents were unhinged. They were hiding something. And the child was a walking question mark. Jason's paranoia began to spiral. He started firing staff. He accused the nannies of feeding Bella bad food that affected her growth. He accused the doctors of incompetence. But mostly, he turned his suspicion on Tiffany. I saw him one day, about a month after the school rejections. I was walking out of a client's office in Midtown, and I saw Jason sitting in his car at a red light. The window was down. He wasn't the polished, glowing man I remembered. He looked gaunt. His skin was gray. He was screaming into his phone, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. "I want to know," he was yelling. "I want to see the files. She's lying to me." I stood there on the sidewalk, watching him drive away. He was a man being eaten alive by his own lie. He was looking for a villain, for a scapegoat, for anyone to blame for the face of his daughter. He didn't realize that the villain was sitting in the driver's seat. The phone rang at exactly 2:13 a.m. I was already awake. Call it intuition, or maybe just the restless energy of a storm approaching, but I had been staring at the ceiling for an hour. Mike was asleep beside me, his breathing deep and steady, the sound of a man with a clear conscience. I saw the name on the screen, Jason, do not answer. I had kept his number saved not out of nostalgia, but for evidence. I knew, deep in my bones, that this moment would come. The house of cards had to fall eventually. I slid out of bed, grabbing my robe, and padded softly into the living room. I didn't want to wake Mike. This was a ghost from my past, and I had to exorcise it alone. "Hello?" I whispered into the darkness. "Sarah?" The voice was unrecognizable. It wasn't the smooth, arrogant baritone of the man who had sneered at my average looks in the lobby of the Sterling Tower. It was a wet, ragged rasp. He was drunk. Not just had a few drinks drunk, but bottom of the bottle drunk. I could hear the clinking of ice against glass echoing in a large, empty room. "It's the middle of the night, Jason. What do you want?" I need to ask you something," he choked out. He sounded terrified, like a child who had woken up in a nightmare. "Did you do it? Did you curse me?" I almost laughed, but the sheer desperation in his voice stopped me. "What are you talking about? Did you put some kind of voodoo hex on me the day I left?" He was slurring his words, frantic. Because nothing makes sense, Sarah. Nothing makes sense. The math doesn't add up. You're not making sense, Jason. My daughter, he wailed, a sound so pathetic it made my skin crawl. My Bella. She's a monster, Sarah. She's hideous. Don't call your child a monster, I snapped, my grip tightening on the phone. She is a little girl. That is disgusting. You haven't seen her up close, he shouted, then lowered his voice to a frantic, conspiratorial whisper. She doesn't look like me. She doesn't look like Tiffany. She looks like a stranger. I walk down the street and people stare. They don't stare because she's cute. They stare because she looks wrong. I promised the world perfection, Sarah. I promised a dynasty. And I produced a joke. He took a ragged breath, fighting back sobs. We did the DNA tests. I made them run it twice. She's ours. She's mine. But how? How can two beautiful people make something so ugly? It's impossible. It has to be a curse. Is that it? Is this your revenge? Did you poison the well? I leaned against the wall, feeling the cool plaster against my back. The irony was so thick I could taste it. He was looking for supernatural explanations because he couldn't face the biological reality. I didn't curse you, Jason, I said calmly. And God didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself. Me? How did I do this? His voice rose to a screech. My genes are flawless. I showed you my jawline. I showed you my profile. I am a specimen. Jason, I cut him off, my voice dropping to a low, serious tone. I think it's time we stopped the theater. I think it's time you looked at the receipts. What receipts? What are you talking about? Go to your computer, I commanded. I just sent you 2 emails. I've been saving them for 3 years. Open the one marked Tiffany first. I heard the fumbling sound of him putting the phone on speaker. I heard the click of a mouse, followed by the heavy breathing of a man on the edge of a breakdown. I don't understand, he muttered. What could you possibly have? Just open it, Jason. Silence. Then, a sharp intake of breath. It sounded like he had been punched in the gut. What, who is this? He whispered. That, I said, savoring every syllable, is your wife. Tiffany Goggins. High school class of 2002. Before the billions. Before the surgeons in Zurich rebuilt her skull. Before she became the perfect Tiffany Sterling. No, he stammered. No, that's not her. That girl, she looks like a horse. She has an underbite. Her eyes are all wrong. Look closer, Jason, I said. Look at the spacing of the eyes. Look at the ear shape. Look at the brow bone. That is the woman you married. That is the genetic perfection you left me for. She didn't have good genes, Jason. She had a good line of credit. She lied to me, he gasped. The sound of betrayal was absolute. She told me she was natural. She mocked you. She told me she was elite. She scammed me. She sold you a product, Jason, I said coldly. Just like you sell penthouses. She staged the property. She put a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling foundation, and you bought it without an inspection. I could hear him hyperventilating now. He was pacing the room. I have to leave her, he hissed. I have to divorce her. She defrauded me. The contract, surely this voids the contract. She promised genetic fitness. This is false advertising. The contract? I laughed dryly. The contract says you get nothing if you leave, Jason. You signed it. Remember? You were so sure of your legacy bonus. You're trapped. You're married to a woman who is just as fake as you are. I'm not fake, he screamed, his narcissism flaring up even in his despair. I am real. I made myself, but the raw material was there. I was handsome before, I just refined it. I was a diamond in the rough. Did you? I asked softly. Are you sure about that, Jason? Because memory is a funny thing. We tend to edit it to fit the story we want to tell ourselves. I was always handsome, he insisted, his voice cracking. I was a little awkward in high school, maybe, but I had the structure. I had the potential. My daughter's nose, that hook, that doesn't come from me. That has to be from her side. Open the second file, Jason, I said. The one marked Jason Miller. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. I knew exactly what image was loading on his screen. I had looked at it 1,000 times. He was looking at page 84 of the North Central High School yearbook. He was looking at the boy with the thick, Coke bottle glasses. He was looking at the boy with the soft, undefined chin that melted into his neck. And he was looking at the nose. That massive, bulbous, hooked nose that took up half the frame. Where? His voice was barely a squeak. Where did you get this? The crawl space, I said. The box you taped shut. The box you forgot when you were too busy stealing my life savings and running off to your ivory tower. Delete it, he begged. Please. Sarah. Turn it off. Look at the nose, Jason, I commanded. My voice was steady, powerful. I was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. No. Look at it. Whose nose is that? Is that Tiffany's nose? Is that the gardener's nose? He didn't answer. He was sobbing now, harsh, ugly sounds. That is Bella's nose, I said. That hook. That shape. It's yours, Jason. It has always been yours. You paid a doctor $10,000 to break it and shave it down, but you couldn't shave it out of your DNA. You couldn't edit your chromosomes. I fixed it, he screamed. It was gone. I killed that boy. It was never gone. It was just hiding. And now it's back. It's sitting on your daughter's face, laughing at you. And the chin? I continued, twisting the knife. That weak chin that you hated so much you got a silicone implant? That's Bella's chin. She is a perfect 50-50 split. She took your nose and Tiffany's jaw. She is the most honest thing you two ever created. I can't be him, he wailed. I can't be that boy again. I hate him. I spent my whole life running away from him. You can't run from your blood, Jason, I said. You wanted a legacy? You got it. Bella is your legacy. Every time you look at her, you aren't seeing a monster. You are seeing yourself. You are seeing the face you were too ashamed to love. He broke down completely then. It wasn't the cry of a man who was sad, it was the cry of a man who was shattered. He had built a temple to his own vanity. He had sacrificed his marriage, his morals, and his humanity to worship at the altar of perfection. And now, biology had handed him the bill. What do I do? He whimpered. Sarah, please. What do I do? I can't look at her. I can't look at Tiffany. I'm living in a freak show. I'm trapped in this house with mirrors everywhere. You live with it, I said. You look at that little girl, and you love her. Because she is you. You apologize to her every day for wishing she was someone else. And you accept that you are just like the rest of us, Jason. Flawed. Imperfect. Human. I can't, he whispered. I have no money. I have no career. If I leave, I lose everything. If I stay, I have to look at the truth. Listen to me, Jason, I said, my voice cutting through his tears like a blade. You spent your life running from the truth. You hurt me. You stole from me. You stepped on everyone to get to the top. But gravity always wins. Truth travels in the blood. It sleeps in the bone. And eventually, it wakes up and cries in the nursery. You didn't get scammed by Tiffany. You scammed yourself. I paused, letting the weight of the moment hang in the air. I could hear his breathing hitching, the realization settling in like concrete. If you are listening to this story right now, and you feel that justice has finally been served, do me a favor. Hit that like button and comment the number 1 below. Let me know that you are with me. Let me know that you believe that truth always wins in the end. Your support tells me that I'm not alone, and that we are walking this path together. Comment 1 now if you're ready to hear how this tragedy ends. Goodbye, Jason, I said. Good luck with your legacy. I hung up the phone. And then, for the first time in 3 years, I blocked the number. Permanently. You might think he left her. You might think she left him. You might think they realized the error of their ways and decided to live authentic lives. But this isn't a fairy tale. This is a transaction. Jason couldn't leave. The prenuptial agreement was ironclad. If he initiated the divorce, he walked away with 0 assets. No alimony, no apartment, no car. He had burnt his bridges in the real estate world to become a trophy husband. He had no skills, no savings, he spent mine, and a lifestyle addiction that required millions to sustain. And Tiffany? She couldn't leave him either. Why? Because she knew Jason had the photos now. I had sent them to him. If she tried to kick him out, he would leak her before photos to the press. He would destroy the Sterling brand. It was mutually assured destruction. So they stayed. I hear stories from Brenda, whose network of estheticians and nannies spans the entire city. They live in a $50 million penthouse that feels like a morgue. They sleep in separate wings. They communicate through personal assistants. The legacy bonus, that $2 million per child, sits in a trust fund, untouched. It's blood money. Neither of them wants to look at it. The house is filled with tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Jason spends his days at the country club, drinking expensive scotch, getting minor cosmetic tweaks, a little more filler here, a little more lift there, desperately trying to run away from the face he sees across the breakfast table. Tiffany spends her time shopping in Paris and Milan, traveling alone, leaving Bella with the nannies. She refuses to be photographed with her daughter. And Bella? Bella grows up in the wealthiest, coldest home in New York City. She is dressed in custom Chanel to distract from her face. She is hidden from the press. She is the shame of the Sterling family. They are trapped in a golden cage, guarding each other's secrets, bound together by the very thing they find most repulsive, their own true faces reflected in their daughter. They wanted a dynasty. They got a prison. I saw them one last time, about 6 months ago. I was walking through Central Park with Mike. It was a crisp, golden autumn day. We were happy. We were talking about the future, maybe adopting a dog, maybe looking into fostering. We were holding hands, not because we were posing for a photo, but because we wanted to touch. I saw a nanny sitting on a bench, looking at her phone. A little girl was playing in a pile of leaves nearby, alone. The girl threw a bright red ball, and it rolled over to my feet. I bent down and picked it up. The little girl ran over. She was about 5 years old now. "Thank you," she chirped. Her voice was sweet, like a bell. I looked down. It was Bella. I recognized her instantly. The nose was undeniable, Jason's nose. The chin was Tiffany's chin. She was a carbon copy of the yearbook photos I had hidden in my closet. But here is the twist. Here is the thing Jason and Tiffany, in their vanity, never understood. She wasn't ugly. She was a child. She had a bright, infectious smile that crinkled her eyes. Her cheeks were flushed with the cold. She radiated an innocence and a joy that her parents had lost decades ago. She didn't know her nose was wrong. She didn't know her chin was weak. She hadn't learned to hate herself yet. She was the only real thing in that entire family. I smiled at her. Genuine, heart-aching warmth filled my chest. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt a profound sense of peace. "Here you go, sweetie," I said, handing the ball back. "I'm Bella," she said, grabbing the ball with muddy mittens. "I like your coat. It's fuzzy." "I like your smile, Bella," I said softly. "Bella, come here immediately." The nanny marched over, grabbing the girl's arm roughly. She looked at me with suspicion, shielding the child as if I were a paparazzo or a kidnapper. "Bye, lady." Bella waved, oblivious to the tension, skipping back to her pile of leaves. I watched her go. I hoped, with everything I had, that she would grow up strong enough to realize that her face wasn't a mistake. Her parents were the mistake. "Who was that?" Mike asked, squeezing my hand. "Just a ghost from the past," I said, turning away. "Come on. Let's go home. I'm 42 years old now. My tax firm is one of the most respected boutique agencies in the city. I'm not a billionaire. I don't live in a penthouse. But I own my home. I own my car. And most importantly, I own my face. Mike and I got married last spring. We did it in our backyard, under a string of fairy lights. I wore a simple white dress that cost $200. I didn't hire a makeup artist to contour my nose. I didn't hide my gray hairs. I didn't pose from my good side. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I cried happy tears. I danced until my feet were blistered. And when I look in the mirror now, I don't see average. I see Sarah. I see a woman who survived a narcissist. I see a woman who built a life with her own hands. Jason wanted a legacy. He wanted to be remembered as a king. Instead, he is a prisoner in a tower, guarding a secret that everyone already knows. He is a man who hates his own reflection so much he can't look his daughter in the eye. I have my legacy too. My legacy is my freedom. My legacy is knowing that when Mike looks at me, he sees me. Not an investment. Not an accessory. Not a collection of body parts to be fixed. He sees me. And that, my friends, is the only perfection that matters. The truth always comes out. Sometimes it takes a week. Sometimes it takes a year. And sometimes, it takes a pair of eyes looking up at you from a crib, reminding you that you can paint over the rust, but you can never, ever change the steel underneath. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of truth and self-acceptance, please subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And never, ever let anyone tell you that you are just average. You are real. And real is rare. Thanks for listening. See you in the next story. And so, this story leaves us with a powerful reminder: no matter how much we try to mask our flaws, our true selves will always find a way to surface. The pursuit of perfection, when rooted in insecurity and deception, becomes a fragile house of cards, destined to collapse under the weight of reality. True beauty, as this tale shows, is not in the symmetry of our faces or the approval of others, it's in the courage to embrace our imperfections and live authentically. Life will always test us, often in the most unexpected ways. But resilience isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about standing tall when the storm passes, stronger and wiser than before. Sarah's journey teaches us that self-worth isn't found in someone else's validation, it's built from within, piece by piece, through every challenge, every heartbreak, and every victory. What about you? What does this story inspire in you? Share your thoughts below or simply comment good if you believe in the power of truth and self-acceptance. Let's remind each other that real strength lies in being unapologetically ourselves.